If you are planning to install some skirting boards around your house, this is the video that you should watch, as you may come across those outside corners at some strange angles like 110 or 60 or anything in between. And in today's video I'm going to show you how to cut these angles on a normal mitre saw. Right then, so I've got two examples prepared for you today, and we're going to be talking about connecting your trim on the outside corner. And for that I have prepared two mock-ups of walls. Okay, so let's pretend these are walls and we're going to be trimming our outer corners over here. So what is an acute angle? Well, this is an acute angle, so it's less than 90 degrees, and an obtuse angle, it's something like this, so it's more than 90 but less than 180 degrees. Let's start with the obtuse angle first. Right then, so let's pretend this is our wall. Okay, we're not sure what the angle is here, and we need to install our trim on that. And to actually tackle this easily, you're gonna need one tool, and that tool is an angle finder. Okay, as you can see, I've got three. I've got a long one, shorter one, and a little bit thicker one. Doesn't matter which one you have. They're not too expensive, and I do definitely recommend that you at least have one in your workshop. They are really quite handy, and especially in this type of job will help you immensely. So our first job is to actually establish the angle of our wall. Okay, you grab the angle finder, zero it out, and just put it against our wall. And the reading from our angle finder indicates that this wall is at 110 degrees. Our full angle is 110 degrees. But we've got two pieces of trim. That means we need to divide that by 2. And that equals to 55 degrees. Okay, so that's in theory the cuts that we need to do. Let's have a quick look on our mitre saw, okay, as there's something that we need to understand here. With a mitre saw, we are doing with complementary angles, okay? So that means two angles will always make up 90 degrees, okay? So that 0 there, as you can see, it's not actually 0, it's 90 degrees. And as we move to the left or to the right, we're actually decreasing the angles. So we are starting from 90, then 80, then 70, 60, and so on. Okay, that's what we need to understand here. So in our case, we need to find 55-degree angle. So 90, 80, 70, 60, and there we go. 55 will actually be on our 35 degrees. Okay, if you are a little bit confused by this, the simplest way is just to mark up your mitre saw. Where you see 0, put 90, when you see 10, put 80, and so on. Okay, it's so much easier that way. So for our 55-degree cut, I'm actually gonna move it to 35 degrees. So now 90 degrees minus the 35 degrees will give us, yes, exactly 55 degrees. Now before we actually going to make the cut, we've got the left and the right hand side. So how do you cut it, which way, and all that, I'm going to show you right now. So as I'm looking at this, I'm in front of it. This is my left side and this is my right side. So this is an outside corner, and over here we've got an inside corner. And actually you will be having a different orientation on your mitre saw of those pieces to make those cuts and to make those angles. So let me show you that right now. So you may think to yourself that the left hand side, as we place it on the left hand side and we set up our mitre to the left hand side, that's the correct orientation. Well, unfortunately it's not. Okay, we need to move our mitre to the right hand side to 35 degrees, okay, just like so, and we are keeping the piece on the left hand side. So let's quickly summarize the left piece. Okay, we are keeping it to the left side, however the mitre is facing the right hand side 35 degrees. Let's make the cut. And now to cut the right hand side, let's place it on the right side and move our mitre to the left this time to 35 degrees. And let's have a look if we manage to do everything correctly. Look at that, beautiful corner there, okay? 110 degrees in total to 55 degree cut. And that's how you would tackle any angles that are more than 90 but less than 180 degrees. How about acute angles on a mitre saw? Well, there is a bit of a trick that you need to follow to actually be able to cut them. But first of all, let's measure the angle here. It seems that the angle of this wall is 60 degrees. So how would you go about that? Well, let's have a look at it. So 60 degrees divided by 2, that equals 30 degrees. So you may think to yourself, that's great, I've got 30 degrees over here. But hold on, remember, this is not how it works. So again, we've got 90 here, then we've got 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, and that's it. My mitre saw doesn't go far enough. So what's the trick to actually get this done? Let me show you. So basically what we do have is a right angle, okay? This is 90 degrees and we need to reduce that, okay? We need to have another fence at a different degree. So the most common way what you would do, move your mitre to 45 degrees. Grab yourself a chunky piece of wood, as we are dealing with skirting boards, okay, that are fairly tall and you're gonna need nice support. And now what you need to do, you need to clamp this down to the unmoving part of your mitre saw, okay? Now I do have a nice clamp on my mitre saw. However, if you don't have a solution like this, you can use double-sided tape and tape it down, or the oldest trick in woodworking book, painter's tape, bit of CA on both pieces and just secure it like that. Now with the mitre set up to 45 degrees, we're actually going to cut this piece to 45 degrees. And now, making sure that this stays in place, we don't move that, we're going to shift our mitre back to 0 degrees, i.e. 90 degrees. And what that piece is now doing is dividing the 90 degree angle here to 45. So if we put that here and make a cut, we're going to have a 45 degree angle cut over here. However, in our case, we do need a 30 degree cut. But that 0 at this point with this block, it's not 90 anymore, it's 45. So 45 minus 10 is 35, minus 5 is 30. So you actually need to set up your mitre to 15 degrees. So let's do that. Again, making sure our block doesn't move. Lock it in place and let's make the cuts. However, it gets a little bit more complicated as we are marking our pieces left and right, okay? So that's the cuts that we need to make. So this time I'm going to take the right hand side. I'm going to show you something. So we've got our temporary fence in place on the left hand side and the angle is 15 degrees on the left hand side. This is my right hand side piece and that's what we need to cut off, okay? That way. So in this current situation, the only way I can put this board is actually the other end facing my saw and making the cut on that end there. However, even the angle cut there would be actually for a closed corner, not an open one like we are trying to do now. So what do? Well, let's have a look. Right hand side, I'm actually going to be facing the face to our jig, okay, like so, in this position. However, in this case, please be careful as you may get very close to the blade. So think about ways of securing this, okay, using some clamping solution or actually using a double-sided tape to tape this down to hold it in place, or again, painter's tape and a bit of CA to hold this down in place so it doesn't move on you. In my case, this is a fairly long piece and I'm fairly confident in my abilities to cut this safely without any issues. And there you go. That's our sharp angle. That's our 30 degrees. But how about the left hand side now with that orientation of our angle? If we are putting the back to our temporary fence like so, well, we are going to be cutting a totally different angle. And if you do flip it like so, then you're cutting the wrong side of our board. So in this case, cutting the left side, what we need to do is to flip it like so, okay? The face is facing our temporary fence, but now the bottom is at the top. And there you go. So in this case, we actually just set up one block, one fence, and we're not moving our mitre. However, we are flipping over our pieces to get the right direction of our cuts. So let's have a look if we manage to get the correct angle. And look at that, beautiful, perfect cut, perfect angle. 60 degrees with no issues. However, as you can see, my skirting boards are, well, fairly simple, okay? They don't have any complex molding on them or anything like that. So it's easy to actually put them upside down, you know, reverse them and everything else. Sometimes these can be very intricate and it would be very hard to actually, you know, put them in a stable way upside down, for example. Now, one thing I really want to stress out is this safety when you do these types of cuts. If, for example, you do have a long skirting board, you know, it shouldn't be an issue. Your hand should be far enough from the blade itself. However, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, think about the solution, how you can clamp this down to the work surface. Maybe just put a piece of MDF on top of it as an extra tabletop for it, and just basically clamp down the two pieces together so that stays in place. Or, as I mentioned before, use the double-sided tape to basically tape this down and hold it in position for you. So yeah, think about safety, how you're going to do these cuts. But in general, if the piece is long enough, your hand should be far away enough from the blade not to cause any harm. However, if you do use a larger block, you can even use a double-sided tape on that and tape both of the pieces together, and that should give you a good clamping solution as well. And there you have it. That's how I tackle the Acute and Obtuse angles for the skirting boards around my house. I think it's a fairly simple process to follow, and obviously probably not the only ways to actually sort this out. Maybe there are easier ways to actually do it. If you know of them, you know where the comment section is, and share it with everybody else so, you know, we can grow as a community and actually share the knowledge around. So in today's video, we did tackle the outside corner. However, next week, we're going to tackle the inside corners as well. Those oddly shaped ones as well. So if you're not a subscriber, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss that video. And hey, if you did learn something today, make sure to share this video with your family and friends, as they may need this information as well. And drop me that big like button down below as well. However, for me, these two techniques work absolutely brilliantly and so far had no issues. I find them very easy to follow and tackle those really nasty angles that I can find around my house. At this point, I just want to say a massive thank you to my Patreons for the ongoing support. However, before you go, check out these two cool playlists over here. Plenty of videos there, and maybe you'll find your next one to watch. So click on those, and I'll see you later.